Hi, Mom.
Hey, Mare.
So, you all probably remember that I shared when I accepted the nomination to be an American Heart Association Woman of Impact. It was for all of you that have your own story of navigating your heart health, and that it was for my mom who has her own story. And so rather than me tell her story, I thought this would be a great opportunity to have her join me, and together we can discuss her own experience. And it's also worth noting the reason why she's here now and not back in January when I accepted the nomination is because she has been out traveling the world because she is healthy and thriving today and taking advantage of all that life has to offer. If you're okay with that, I thought we'd go back a little bit to when you first found out about your diagnosis and maybe the possibility of what could have caused it.
Sure.
So I'll let you start there.
Sure. Well, I had breast cancer, which is very common in people my age. It was very tiny, smaller than a pea. That was removed, everything fine. I then had radiation for 28 days, which is a typical course. And after that, they discovered that I had a heart murmur as I was going through my regular checkups. And they suggested I see a cardiologist. Of course, when they tell you to see your cardiologist, you, like most people, are like, I don't have a cardiologist to go see. But I did find a wonderful care team at KU Med Center. I went to the cardiologist who ran a series of tests on me, from a stress test, different types of scopes. And one day, shortly after the tests were completed, I went into his office and he said, "You have to have major heart surgery." And at that point in time, I literally turned around to see who he might be talking about in the room, because it wasn't me, I was sure. My diagnosis was chronic heart failure. It was also mitral valve regurgitation. I can't say that word very well. And the idea is, we all know what the term heartstrings, we've heard that, pull on your heartstrings. Well, the theory is that perhaps radiation to my breast cancer pulled a little bit too hard on my mitral heartstrings, so my mitral valve was no longer functioning properly. It was allowing what's called regurgitation. Blood was going back into the lower chamber of the heart. My heart was working really hard to pump that blood back out. It was coming back in, really hard to pump that blood back out. And Dr. Farrow, my cardiologist, said within 6 weeks, I would not be able to probably walk across the room without having shortness of breath. This was a complete shock to me, particularly since in 8 weeks from this time, he was telling me I planned on being on a beach in Mexico, not having open heart surgery. Well, long story short, at KU Med, they had a wonderful doctor there that was skilled with robotic surgery, and they were able to robotically repair that mitral valve. That was November 1st, and indeed on January 2nd, I was walking the beaches of Mexico without any ramifications. That little period of time, though, in my life gave me a new understanding about really how important heart health is, and that you can be extremely healthy. I wasn't overweight, I don't smoke, my cholesterol was in control. I was doing everything that a person that age, and at the time I was 70, that I was supposed to be doing. And yet you still get a diagnosis of chronic heart failure and it stops you in your tracks. And so without intervention and without all that care team and without a doctor who was willing to say, looking at what looked like a very healthy woman, you need to have heart surgery. And really the first, up until 8 years ago, or maybe even less than that, that would have been open heart surgery, and my recovery would have been very long. But heart failure, when you hear those terms and you Google it, has terrible ramifications for what my future would have held. Fortunately, I am now easily walking 5 miles a day on vacation, often 10 miles a day, because I had a good heart care team that understood what my problem was, understood that it was fixable, and here I am to tell you that I am fine and well.
I love it. And there's a couple things that I also think are really significant about that story. And the first one is I was supposed to be out of town on a girls' trip when you were having this surgery. And I remember reaching out to some of my girlfriends, I guess a little bit in shock, saying my mom has to go in for major heart surgery. And saying, you guys go ahead, have fun. We already paid all the money for it. Don't worry about it. And I remember as soon as I made that call, and it seems so insignificant, but also such a huge testament to all the people that were rooting for you and standing by my side. I remember my Venmo, they started paying back my portion, which they had to cover on their own. And again, it's a silly thing, but it's the little demonstrations of generosity that really mean so much. So I love her sharing the story about the impact that KU Med had, and I'll tie that to the American Heart Association, because University of Kansas Medical Center has received funding directly through the work that's being done with the Women of Impact and with Go Red for Women to support research that contributed to really a very advanced surgery that my mom had. And the robotic surgery, that was fairly
new, absolutely.
And to say that happened, and a month later she was able to go out on her beach vacation. I mean, it's those little things that make this important. And those are the reasons that I keep doing this, and the reasons I keep posting about this and talking about this and sending you all emails, is because she has her story. Her story directly impacted me, and so many of you have that same type of story. And I want to say thank you and say that I love you. And I'm thrilled with the outcome, obviously, and so happy that I get to do something now that can tie back to your experience, to what I may need in the future, to what my daughters might need in the future. It feels important.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this, because no one can ever understand until you're sitting in a doctor's chair and they say your heart isn't right, to try to figure out, what did I do wrong? And when you find out you did nothing wrong, it's just what it is. And to hear that in 6 weeks from the time sitting there, that I would not be able to do everything I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. But it's because of research and because of money that's gone to that research. I probably had 8 different tests before I went in there, and all those tests have been proven, and they understand why they do them. And it's all because of dollars that are given to organizations like American Heart Association. Mm-hmm. So thank you for doing this.
And thank you all for the support that you've shown and have continued to show. And I look forward to celebrating the outcome of this campaign here in just a few short weeks. Thank you.